Hi there and welcome to the History Teacher. This revision video covers Weimar and Nazi Germany from the GCSE Edexcel 9-1 course. Hopefully you'll also find it useful if you're studying any of the other exam boards or if, like me, you just love history. You can now become a member to support me to continue making this content from just £1 a month. Plus you'll get exclusive access to worksheets, revision materials, and you'll get to vote on forthcoming episodes. The link is in the description. Hi there guys, today we're going to be taking a look at question 3D on paper 3. This is a long one this week because I want to go through the whole answer with you step by step so you can feel confident in answering it in your exam. Remember, all of question 3 links together, so I'll be continuing the question that I started in 3A and 3B and C, so you can see how all of this fits together. Question 3D carries 16 marks plus 4 for SPAG, which is why it's sometimes called the 20-mark question. I don't really want you to worry about the SPAG. Most papers get 3 marks for SPAG, and it's only if your essay is particularly poor or particularly good that this changes. The question focuses on AO4, and it is the only time you're expected to analyse, evaluate, and make judgments about interpretations. A final key thing to note about this question is that you should allow 30 minutes for this question, including planning time. I think there's a lot of worries surrounding this question, so we're going to go through this step by step and you will be able to see that it is not difficult. So let's start by looking at this question and breaking down exactly what it's asking you to do. The first thing we spot is it's asking, how far do you agree with interpretation 2? So in order to answer this, you need to have understood what interpretation 2 is saying. But we've already done this in question 3B, so you will already know. But just as a reminder, we decided that interpretation 2 was saying that hyperinflation was a serious challenge for the Weimar Republic. So we're going to have to decide whether we agree with that and how much we agree. It then gives the focus of the question, which is the challenges facing the Weimar Republic in the years 1919 to 23. This is exactly the same focus for all of question 3, so you should have this clearly in your mind by the time you reach question 3D. Finally, the question says, explain your answer using both interpretations and your knowledge of the historical context. So this means that we need to make sure we are talking about both the interpretations and we are bringing in our own knowledge of the events. You'll recognise some of this from the 16-mark questions on paper 1 and 2, and there is a similarity in how we answer it. Just like in the other 16-mark questions, I'm going to use PEEAL to structure my answer, but this time I'm going to add in an L, and this stands for language. This is because in the mark scheme it says, precise analysis of the interpretations is shown, indicating how the differences of view are conveyed and deploying this material to support the evaluation. The key phrase here being how the views are conveyed. So I'm not only going to analyse the content of the interpretations, also how they say it. Just like the other big mark questions, I strongly recommend you take a minute or two to plan your answer before beginning. So just like the 16 marks from paper 2, I'm going to write my judgment out before I even start. This is so I can ensure my answer is logically structured and that my line of reasoning is the same throughout, because I have it there to refer to. As I've already spent some time analysing these interpretations in questions 3B, I know that interpretation 2 is focused on hyperinflation and interpretation 1 is focused on the challenges from the left and right. I personally think they're both right to some extent. I think it is the combination of all the challenges that was the real threat to the Weimar Republic, so I'm just going to jot that down there to remind me. So with that under my belt, I'm going to plan my paragraphs. Just as with all the 16-mark questions, I'm going to need 3 paragraphs to demonstrate that I've reviewed the alternative views. In this question though, my paragraph's going to be a little bit different. I'm going to spend a minute just looking again at the interpretations to identify what I'm going to be analysing. Interpretation 2 covers 2 key things: the causes and consequences of hyperinflation, and interpretation 2 speaks generally about the challenges from the left and right. So I can easily turn this into 3 paragraphs. Paragraph 1 is going to be about the consequences of the hyperinflation, because the focus of my question is the challenges faced by the Weimar Republic. For paragraph 2, I'm going to need to talk about the other interpretation, so in this case the challenges from the left and right. And finally, unlike in the other 16-mark questions, I don't need to add a paragraph of my own. I am going to return to interpretation 2 because that's the one that's asked about in the question. And this time I'm going to talk about the causes of hyperinflation. So now I've got my plan, I can start to write. I'm going to start writing my answer by answering the question. This is easy because I've already planned it. It's so important because you must make make a judgment or you'll be capped at level 1. So I'm going to start with, I partly agree with interpretation 2 when it says that hyperinflation forced the Weimar Republic to fear for its own existence. But the challenges from left and right were also serious challenges to the new republic. And it was the combination of these challenges that truly threatened the Weimar Republic. This is going to act as my framework for my answer, and I'm going to keep reading that back to myself to make sure I stay on track for that line of reasoning from the mark scheme. So now we can get on with our paragraphs. So just like any other PEE paragraph, I'm going to start with a sentence to outline what the point of this paragraph will be. So I've written, Interpretation 1 clearly states from the beginning that hyperinflation forced the Weimar government to fear for its own existence. Now once again, I'm going to add my evidence. Remember, this is where you tell the examiner what you know about this event while focusing on the question. So I have put, as Alpha History says, they simply printed even more money. This ruined the economy. The vast majority of Germans were badly affected by hyperinflation. As the value of money shrank and the cost of goods rose, many people lost their life savings and pensions, and many more found themselves queuing at the shops to buy food before the prices increased again. You can see that here I've used a direct quote from the interpretation to support my evidence. The square bracket shows I've added my own word to help it make sense, and I'm just showing that I know about this event and linking it to the interpretation. On to explain then. This is pretty straightforward. I just need to link the event, hyperinflation, to the focus of the question. So, for the majority of Germans, the hyperinflation showed them that the Weimar Republic couldn't run the country, and people talked openly about removing the government by popular revolution or a military putsch. Again, I'm using direct quotes to explain why hyperinflation was a challenge for the Weimar Republic. Now we're going to move on to our analysis. Here I'm going to make a judgment about how big of a challenge it was by comparing it to my own knowledge. So, however, not everyone in Germany felt this way. Some, including farmers and manufacturers of essential goods, profited from the hyperinflation. Additionally, although many did indeed talk about overthrowing the government, no such attempt was actually made until November 1923 by the Nazis in the Munich Putsch. The Nazis' attempted putsch gained little public support, which suggests that the German population in fact did not want a popular revolution. I've used connectives such as however to ensure that I am comparing, and adding the information about the Munich Putsch to illustrate my point, which is that people didn't really want an uprising. Now we come to the new bit, L for language, and this is where you just need to think about the language and tone used and see if you agree with it. So the interpretation does not say that hyperinflation was a real threat to the Weimar Republic, only that it caused the Weimar Republic to fear. I would agree with this assessment because the people were certainly angry, but no action was taken by them. And so I'm just focusing on that language Alpha History have used to help me with my judgment. And that's it for paragraph 1. Okay, let's have a go at paragraph 2. You can see I've already done my PEEA section of the answer, and I've used direct quotes and my own knowledge to decide how much I agree with the interpretation. And now I just need to add that L for language. So again, I'm going to analyse a direct quote which links to the focus of the question. I agree with the interpretation that the uprisings made it difficult for the new government to maintain order and govern Germany. However, although the government was forced to take steps to end these uprisings, ultimately they were unsuccessful, and therefore the threat was not as great as it might have been. So, this time I have slightly disagreed with the interpretation. I'm pointing out that although these challenges were serious, the Weimar Republic ultimately survived them. So finally we come to paragraph 3, and interpretation 2's discussion of the causes of hyperinflation. I'm going to take issue with this because although the events are accurate, I feel like the author is saying they were things that happened to Germany rather than Germany taking an active role in the events. So this time my point will be, finally, I do not agree with interpretation 2 when it says after the French had occupied the Ruhr, the industrial workers had gone on strike, because it implies that the government had no control over these events. So I'm then going to outline the causes of hyperinflation for my evidence. The occupation of the Ruhr occurred because the Germans had missed reparation payments, and then, to try to defend themselves against the occupation, the Weimar government instructed the workers to strike. As a result of this, the Weimar government printed money to pay the strikers, which ultimately led to the hyperinflation. Now I've got my evidence, I need to explain how it links to the focus of the question, and to my own point, and this is so important. I've put, these events were not something that happened to a passive Germany, but a consequence of deliberate policy. Germans missed their reparation payment despite the threat of invasion from the French, and then they chose to order the workers to strike and to pay them by printing more money, thereby leading to people losing faith in the government. My analysis is once more going to go on and compare the interpretations with the events. However, the interpretation goes on to say that this ruined the economy. And this was true in the short term, but Stresemann's economic policies were able to fix the economy and Germany became a prosperous nation in the late 1920s. So I've compared it and it shows I disagree. Finally, my L for language. I'm going to be quite bold here because I think the interpretation has really missed out the effect of the Weimar government's actions on causing itself challenges. So I've put, it's wrong to suggest that Germany were a passive victim of circumstances in 1923. Hyperinflation was a consequence of the actions of the government, and it was these actions that caused the people to begin talking about overthrowing the government. So that's it. That's my 3 paragraphs. Just like in all the other 16 marks, I now need to write a conclusion. And the conclusion is exactly the same as the statement I made right at the beginning, but with more detail. You should never add anything new in your conclusion, and don't worry if it feels like you're repeating yourself. My conclusion looks like this. In conclusion, I partly agree with Interpretation 2's view that the hyperinflation was a serious threat to the Weimar Republic. The increasing costs of living brought many people into severe poverty, and people did speak about overthrowing the government. However, this followed a period of violence and rebellion in the form of uprisings from those on the extreme left and right. Many people were already questioning the Weimar Republic, and hyperinflation just made it worse. Ultimately though, the Weimar Republic survived all of the upheaval between 1919 and 23. Although the events caused people to question the effectiveness of the government and caused problems in managing the uprisings, the Weimar Republic continued, and faith was restored by Stresemann's foreign and economic policies. So, I've clearly linked back to my opening statement, I've referred to my points from Interpretation 2 and Interpretation 1, and then I've brought it all together in a final sentence. Okay, that is everything you need to know about question 3D. Hopefully you can now have confidence going into this question. As always, there is a model answer and a practice worksheet along with my contact details in the description. Now for a quick word from my other half, and I will see you next time.
History teacher's SO here. She's given up work and is living off her savings to make these videos full time. Unfortunately, savings don't last forever, so we're asking for your help. If you can spare any money to help her keep making these videos, please visit the Buy Me a Coffee link in the description and give what you can. That said, we know these are difficult times. You might not have any money to spare, but you can still help. Like, comment, and subscribe for the algorithm, but also spread the word. Tell your friends, colleagues, and anyone you think might be interested. Thanks.